Hello and welcome to another episode of Ask the Consistory. I'm your host for this video, Reverend Jake Zabel of the St. John's Evangelical Lutheran Church located in Dalby, Queensland, Australia. And so for today's video, I've got the question of what is supersessionalism, or can I comment on the doctrine of supersessionalism? So supersessionalism, which kind of comes from the word to supersede, is also sometimes known as replacement theology. This is the doctrine that says that the new covenant has superseded the old covenant. This also says that the church now supersedes the Jewish people as the new people of God, that the church is the new Israel. This view is often rejected by Christian Zionists and a lot of American evangelicals, dispensationalists, who believe that the Old Covenant still applies, that all the Old Testament prophecies to the nation of Israel apply not to the church, but to the nation of Israel, hence why they support Christian Zionism, or they support the re-establishment of the state of Israel, because they believe that in order for the second coming of Christ to happen and for all these promises to be fulfilled, there needs to be an actual nation-state of Israel. That view is not held by Lutherans, or at least most Lutherans, and a good chunk of Anglicans, also Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox. All of us, we are supersessionalists. We believe that the new covenant supersedes the old covenant, and that the church supersedes the nation-state of Israel, so that if there are any Old Testament prophecies concerning the nation-state of Israel, they now apply to the church and not to the nation-state of Israel or to the Jewish ethnicity. Instead, they actually apply to Christians, and to the church they apply to believers in God. Some of the chief texts that support this doctrine are things like Romans chapter 11, where Paul talks about this olive tree, where he's talking about there was this olive tree, and that was the Jewish nation state, but because they rejected God and they didn't believe in God, that God broke those branches off. And then when he took these wild olive branches, that is to represent the Gentile nations, and he has grafted those into the olive tree, he then warns us Gentiles that, hey, just because you've been grafted in, don't think that God can't break you off as well. This is the biblical doctrine that says that there was this nation state, there was this Jewish state, that was God's people, but because they rejected God, God has broken off all those Jews that have rejected him, and instead he has grafted in all those Gentiles that have believed in him. You also have Hebrews chapter 8 verse 13 that talks about the new covenant making the old covenant obsolete. The thing that I really want to talk about this is that this doctrine says that the church has replaced Israel. And while that is definitely true to a degree, I want to say that it actually goes beyond that. That it's not just some kind of New Testament concept, but that this idea that believers and not ethnicity saves is something that is actually seen already in the Old Testament. See, we mustn't think that in the Old Testament, salvation was based on ethnicity and, belonging to the Jewish nation state, and that in the New Testament, now salvation is based on faith. No, the Bible is clear that ethnicity never saved, that the nation state never saved, but that it was faith alone that saved. Paul makes this clear time and time again, in especially the book of Romans, when he says that, Jewish ethnicity doesn't save, that circumcision doesn't save, that it is faith in God alone that saves. You have Jesus saying in Matthew chapter 3 verse 9 and its counterpart in Luke chapter 3 verse 8 that he says that you Jews think that you're saved because you're descended from Abraham. Well, I tell you that if God wanted to, he could turn these stones into children of Abraham. Essentially, Jesus was saying, your ethnicity doesn't save you. The fact that you Jews are descended from Abraham does not save you. And what Jesus is saying, that your ethnicity doesn't save you. The fact that you're descended from Abraham does not save you. And as I said, this is not some kind of New Testament concept, but this can be seen already in the Old Testament. We have plenty of people in the Old Testament that are not ethnically Jewish, that are not descended from Abraham, and yet they are still considered part of the people of God and are saved. You have Rahab, the prostitute, who is a Canaanite. You have Ruth, who is a Moabite. They were descended from Lot, not from Abraham. You have Uriah the Hittite, one of David's mighty men. One of David's lead generals was Ittai the Gittite. The Gittites were the people of the city of Gath, one of the main Philistine cities. There you have it. One of David's lead generals was a Philistine, and he was a believer in God, and therefore he was a person. One of David's lead generals was a Philistine. He was a believer in God. He belonged to the people of God, even though he was not ethnically Jewish. And of course, in the book of Esther, you have all these Persians that convert to Judaism. These are not ethnic Jews, but due to faith, they are saved and are considered the people of God. Also, you have Old Testament verses that talk about ethnic Jews being condemned because they do not have faith. In 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 18, you have God talking about how Israel and Judah have rejected him, but that there are only 7,000 left who haven't bent the knee to Baal. So God is saying that out of all these people that are ethnically Jewish, only 7,000 of them actually believe, and only 7,000 of them are truly the people of God and will be saved. All the others, despite their ethnicity, despite the fact that they belong to the nation states of Judah and Israel, that didn't save them. They rejected God, they didn't believe in God, and so they were condemned. You also have in Jeremiah, both in chapter 4 verse 4 and in chapter 9 verse 25, that God is talking about condemning people that are, as he says, circumcised merely in the flesh and not circumcised in the heart. These are people that they thought they were saved because of their Jewish ethnicity, but they didn't actually believe in the triune God. They didn't believe in the promised Messiah who had not yet come. Instead, they had rejected God's covenant, and they thought they were still saved because of their ethnicity. And God says, no. Your ethnicity, your connection to this nation state, your circumcision, that does not save you. What saves you is faith. Therefore, since you do not believe, since you do not worship me, I will condemn you. And so, just talking about the doctrine of supersessionalism. Yeah, the church has replaced the nation state of Israel. The church has superseded Israel. But this is not something that I think is just a New Testament concept. This has been there since the beginning. This has been there since the beginning. This can be seen throughout the Old Testament, that it is not ethnicity or nation states that save a person, it is faith in God that saves. So, yeah, as a Lutheran, I will kind of still accept the doctrine of supersessionalism because I do, to a degree, believe that the Old Testament prophecies concerning Israel now speak to the church, the new Israel. But I think that we need to keep in mind this fact that ethnicity is never saved. There was never this concept that in the Old Testament the Jews got saved just because they belonged to the nation state of Israel. And that this kind of dispensationalist belief that Jews will all convert at the end times because of their ethnicity. No, the Bible makes it clear in both the Old and the New Testament that it is faith alone that saves. Therefore, whether you're an ethnic Jew or an ethnic Gentile, it does not matter. And this is the whole point Paul makes in Romans 11. He says, you Jews think you're going to be saved because you're ethnically Jewish? Well, guess what? God can break you off the olive tree and throw you away. And he says, you Gentiles, you think you're saved because you've been grafted into the tree? Well, guess what? Don't be cocky. Don't be overconfident. If you think that you're saved just because today you're saved, well, guess what? You can fall away from the faith. So don't be overconfident and think you're any better than the Jews. Don't think you're any better than the ethnic Jews. You know, if the native tree can be cut down, so can the wild tree. So, yeah, it's just Paul's way of saying, guess what? Ethnicity doesn't save you. Faith saves you. And just keep that in mind. And don't think you're any better because of your ethnicity or anything like that. Instead, be confident in the fact that you believe in Jesus because it is that that saves you. I've been your host, Reverend Jake Zabel. Thank you for watching. I hope that has been helpful. If you want me to talk more about the doctrine of supersessionalism, contact me and let me know. I didn't really touch too much on the doctrine. I kind of went on a bit of a side tangent. But if you want me to talk more specifically about that doctrine, contact me and let me know. I've been your host, Reverend Jake. Goodbye and God bless.